I've noticed a trend in the way battle manga write their magic systems. I talked about it a little in my video on the types of power systems, but I fleshed it out more. The two types are a learning system and a skill tree. A learning system is where any character can theoretically learn any skill as long as they train under someone who can use that skill. The skill tree is like in games. Characters can start with a base ability and then have universally branching skills that they are capable of learning. Now analyze both of them and then examine the strengths and weaknesses. Dragon Ball is the main OG when I think of a learning system. Much can be said about Ki, but I really like the way that some characters learn moves, especially Goku. The protagonist is the perfect embodiment of the learning system because nearly every one of his major skills was learned from a teacher. Goku learned Kamehameha from Roshi. He copied Solar Flare from Tien. He learned Kaioken and Spirit Bomb from King Kai. He learned instant transmission from the Yadrats. Even in the Super manga, he copied Hakai from Beerus. Piccolo had Masenko and taught that to Gohan, who taught it to Trunks in Super. Both Gohan and Trunks learned their father's signature moves, Kamehameha and Gallic Gun. The idea that a character can learn any move by training with a teacher is really cool. DBZ didn't use it with every character, but when it happened, it was always interesting. Also, if moves can be learned, someone had to create it. The learning system usually has creators, but those creators are rarely the main characters. Having the hero finally create a move of their own can be really cool after having them learn from others for so long. The main pro of this system is that the magic system and fights have near limitless creativity. Characters can have a random assortment of skills that add complexity to the fight. Characters can keep growing by learning and creating powers. The main con is that the audience might start asking why characters don't learn moves. For example, why didn't King Kai teach the other Z fighters Kaioken or Spirit Bomb? Yu Yu Hakusho is the next big story I know to use this system. Yusuke learned Spirit Gun from Koenma. He learned Spirit Shotgun, Spirit Wave, and Spirit Cuffs from Genkai. In both DBZ and Yu Yu Hakusho, a lot of characters just have moves of their own that they probably created, but when they are learned, it's much more interesting. If taken full advantage of, a story could have a lot of interesting abilities and interesting relationships conveyed through who has what move and where they learned it from. Naruto is the next big story with this system. It has a little bit of a genetic system going on, but I'll ignore that for simplicity's sake. Naruto learned transformation from school, clones from a scroll, summoning and Rasengan from Jiraiya, nature transformation from Kakashi, and Sage Mode from Fukusaku. Most of his moveset is an evolution of these abilities. Sasuke learned Chidori from Kakashi and summoning from Orochimaru. Sakura learned healing, monster strength, and summoning from Tsunade. All characters with clan abilities learned it from their parents. Naruto did the best so far, but it still suffers from the main con. You could ask why certain characters didn't learn certain moves. Naruto voiced this a little, with clan techniques being reserved for clans and elemental affinities making it harder to learn, but there's still a gap. Kakashi and Sasuke were in the same squad and shared an elemental affinity, so Kakashi taught Sasuke his lightning move. Guy and Lee were in the same squad and both struggled with ninjutsu and genjutsu, so Guy taught Lee his taijutsu. That's all fine, but Asuma, Shikamaru, and Choji were in the same squad and they all had fire affinity. You could ask why Asuma didn't teach them his fire jutsu. You could also ask why other characters didn't hunt for people with similar abilities to teach them moves, or learn moves that they didn't have an affinity for, or just learn from a bunch of different teachers instead of just one or two like Goku. You could counter that with plot reasons, but what I'm saying is that the lingering question of what could have been is still there. On the positive side, Naruto really shows the benefit of having a learning system. Fights like Sasuke vs Danzo and Naruto vs Pain show how complex fights can get when the combatants have multiple unrelated abilities that each offer something unique to the fight. Like with DBZ and Yu Yu Hakusho, only the main characters really gained an extensive library of moves, but it's still cool. Battle manga has room to improve the learning system by making more characters have wider arsenals of skills from various teachers. Magi is the last magic system that used learning, but it was restricted to a small sector of characters. If you were a magician, you could learn any spell, or even create them, but most characters were Jin users, which is part of a skill tree. The first skill tree system I am aware of is Oversoul from Shaman King. I'm not an expert on the story, but I'll try my best. There are 4 types of Oversouls: Spirit, Weapon, Armor, and Unity. Every character has a guardian ghost, and all Oversoul types are theoretically available to everyone. Yo, Ren, and Usui all have Weapon, Spirit, and Armor types. Unity is the hardest to achieve, and Chocolove has it. Characters gain new attacks with each type, but I'm not sure there is a core ability tying everything together. Bleach's Zanpakuto was the next step. Each Shinigami had a sword that had 2 transformations. The first form activates the base powers. The second form improves upon those powers by a lot. Every Zanpakuto had the potential for both forms, but they have to be learned. Magi imitates Bleach with Jin equips, but there are more options available. Every Jin user has the potential to do a Jin equip, a full Jin equip, extreme magic, and create a household vessel by sharing some of their power with an ally. Here, all the branching powers are tied to the base element or signature ability of the Jin. Jujutsu Kaisen really takes it to another level. Instead of tying the skill tree to spirits and weapons, it's a genetic ability like many other battle manga. Here, every curse technique has the potential for extension techniques, reversal, and domain expansion. I think this is the best because the other universal branches are just slightly evolved base techniques. Extensions kinda do that, but Gojo's extension is basically a new move. And then there's a reversal of the technique available, which can potentially drastically add to the sorcerer's moveset depending on how different it is. And then there's the domain. If it's a unique kind of domain, it can expand their skill set even more. Even if it's not unique, that's still 3 universal branches from one root. The strength of the skill tree is that the skill ceiling is established ahead of time, allowing the audience to know exactly how strong the characters can grow, even if they don't know exactly what the branches would look like. The major weakness is that it creates so much expectation. The fans want to see every ability complete the skill tree. When the author doesn't do that, the story gets called a fraud or accused of wasting potential. Another weakness is that if a character starts with a lame ability, they're basically screwed, or at least put at a major disadvantage. Technically, Devil Fruit and Quirk Awakenings are universal branches, but it's not really a tree if there's only one branch. There's also technically a subcategory, which I'd call an invisible skill tree. Each character can learn new skills tied to their base power, but there are no universal branches. The new skills aren't predictable. Fairy Tail and Black Clover do this. I didn't focus on it because it doesn't share the advantages or disadvantages of the proper skill tree. In conclusion, the strength of the learning system is the expansive arsenal and limitless creativity. The weakness is the question of consistency in why some characters with weak movesets didn't learn more moves. The strength of the skill tree is the predictability of level ups. The weakness is that the characters can get stuck with a poor ability and the amount of backlash for not completing everyone's skill tree. I like both. The learning system can be improved by having more characters have learned abilities at the start and then eventually creating their own that they can teach. The skill tree can be improved by having more universal branches and having most characters complete their tree or come close.